go.
Good one. Good evening, fight fans. Great Talk is back. I am your host, JFT, and as always, my No Punches Pulled co-host, host of Liam's Fight Night, Liam Tully. How are we?
I'm all good, brother. I'm all good. We're back. It's been a couple of busy weeks, but we've managed to fit it in before the footy gets on, before the Champions League final. Let's go. Let's talk fight sports.
We have. It is good to be back. It is spoke since the fights happened last week. Heavy defeat. Not in terms of the fight, but certainly the defeat hinders this sort of comeback. I think he was talking about, being a 2-weight world champion, and he moved up to 147, and that's not turned out well for him. What are your, and we're a week removed from the fight. What's some feelings on that a week later?
Pretty similar to where I was at when we left the live on fight night. Josh Taylor started well. He looked good for 4 rounds and then just faded very, very quickly. And me and Sam had a conversation about Charlo for tonight, how an active fighter, that kind of vibe. Echo Esserman 3 years ago was never fit to lace Josh Taylor's boots. That's not being harsh. That's the reality.
That's
In
real.
the time that Josh Taylor's had 3 fights, Echo Esserman's had 5. That activity and that... Even one of those defeats and one of those 5 fights he lost to Chris Congo. Doesn't matter. He was active. He was out there. Momentum. And he's such a pressure fighter. Echo Esserman doesn't do anything outstandingly, but he's constantly there. He's constantly in your face. And Josh Taylor couldn't deal with it. Josh Taylor 3 or 4 years ago breezes Echo Esserman. It doesn't even go 5 rounds, but it says a lot for momentum. What I want to see now, Josh Taylor, who either does Regis Pro Grade 2 or he does Jack Catterall 3. They're the only 2 fights really for Josh at this point. But I'd rather he hung them up. He's going to go down as a Hall of Famer. We've not had another Brit win all 4 belts. He goes down as a Hall of Famer. If he goes in there with Regis and loses, or Jack and loses, his legacy will be he's not won in 5 years, which shouldn't be his legacy, but that will be what people say it is. Echo Esserman, he's not a sexy enough name. I absolutely love Echo. And we spoke last week about how me and you have a similar opinion on Echo Esserman. But he's not a sexy enough name. He unfortunately will be overlooked now, I think, unless Frank can very cleverly push him in the right direction towards the belt. No one like Harlem Eubank, Jack Catterall, no one of that rhetoric is going to want to fight him, which is a shame because he's 36, so he's not got time. He's got to go now. He's got 18 months to capitalize on the momentum. So it was a shame to see Josh Taylor lose. We were very flat at the end of the watch along, but
the flattest I've been in a while. And sorry to cut you off. It's not that we're massive Josh Taylor fans. I think it was a massive disappointment for us. I felt that anyway. I felt really disappointed.
But we also said that Echo Esserman has the type of fight style and has the type of engine to get rid of Josh Taylor. Yeah. Not get rid of him, but to beat Josh Taylor. And I had 117, 111. I think you had similar.
116, 112, I think I had.
Yeah. 117, 111, and 116, 112 were 2 of the judges' scorecards. That tells you everything you need to know. We sometimes, because we're talking and don't have to sound on, we score fights wrong. And we've held our hands up before, me and you, for getting it wrong. But we both had 2 of those scorecards on Saturday night. And we were flat because it's the end of Josh Taylor.
Yeah.
Him winning a world title, but it's the end of Josh Taylor as we know him, and that's why we were flat. It was a real shame, wasn't it?
Yeah, I look. I've got a few takes from this, right? I, as you did, picked Esserman to win anyway. I think we both saw the writing was sort of on the wall. I think it was a mix of a few things. I think it was the wrong fight to come back to anyway. Somebody that's pressure, that has a good engine, that can take a shot, hits hard himself. I think it was just all wrong. Everything about that screamed loss for me, and I never changed from the minute the fight was made. I said Josh Taylor is going to lose. I think you were very similar. I think they could have manoeuvred Josh to a point where he'd have got a shot, a massive fight at 147. I think they've ruined that now because we've seen behind the curtain. Josh isn't the fighter that he was 4 years ago. Inactivity hasn't been kind to him. Some fighters get away with rejuvenating, recharging, repairing, replenishing, catching themselves back up and having a second wind. I think Josh has gone in too quick, not in terms of time, of a certain level, too quick. I think it just was the wrong opponent. And Esserman, that was his world, that was his cup final. It was the away fight. I thought they were going to shit him on the cards. I thought this has got draw.
We said it, didn't we? Sorry, mate. We said it on the watch along. Watch Esserman get shitted. All three of us. Sam doesn't score fights because he can't multitask, bless him. But even Sam was saying that if Esserman loses this on the cards, he's been shat on. And that wasn't us being biased. That was us being really honest. Because after 4 rounds, I think we all had it 3-1 to Josh. We were very honest. Josh started very well. But he faded so quickly. The thing that stands out for me most in that fight is how quickly Josh Taylor went from looking sensational to dropping off. Echo Esserman stayed at a very similar level for 12 rounds.
He does that, doesn't he? Similar speed, similar pace. Sorry to cut you, just going back to something that will reinforce what you've just said. On the watch along, if you watch, I think it's either round 3 or round 4. Sam's pretty hyped on what Taylor's doing. Yeah. And I say to him, yeah, I get that. Just give it a couple of rounds because he might not be able to keep this going. And within a round, the shift went 360.
So Josh started in 5th gear. We've spoken about it with fights before. Usyk Bellew is a prime example of Bellew is beating Usyk after 7 rounds, but he's in 5th gear and Usyk's in 2nd. It was very similar last weekend. Different skill levels before anyone comes for me.
Yeah.
Josh was at 1 million miles an hour. Echo was at a lesser level. You know what else I think is interesting? That was meant to be a 10-round fight until fight week. Josh Taylor's team appealed for it to be a 12-round fight. I wonder if in hindsight they regret making it 12 rounds because it's 10, 11, 12 where
it gets wide. The gap gets wider, doesn't it, in the championship rounds?
Because if that's a 10-round fight and you've given Josh 4 of the first 5 rounds, which is where we're at,
I think. Yeah.
It's the back end. I need to stop. I need to put this on. It's the back end of the. It's the back end of the fight where Echo pulls away, and it's those championship rounds. If you talk about championship rounds, you favour Josh Taylor because of what he's done against Jose Ramirez, against Regis Prograis, against a variety of fighters. But it was Echo Esserman that looked better. Yeah. But as I said at the start, and I hate saying this because I have a sweet spot for Echo Esserman before Saturday night, but especially for what he done last week. He's not a sexy enough fighter to get the opportunities. Frank is going to have to do a bit of whining and dining. He's going to have to really pull it. Whereas if Josh Taylor won on Saturday, he was.
They'd have been queuing up. Yeah, the queuing up. But I think you might have said it as well. But I think we discussed it on No Punches Pulled. I said that I could see Harlem Eubank fighting Esserman for a world title shot at some point later on in the year if they both win the fights.
Yep.
We're halfway there, and I was shot down for that statement because people said that I'd underestimated Josh Taylor.
I agreed with you on that, and people can go back and watch.
Yeah. Because we're not always right, but I know what I'd seen in Josh Taylor's last fight, and Josh Taylor's one of those. It happens more in MMA, certainly the UFC. When a world champion loses, they very, very rarely get it back. There's very few. There's Alexander Volkanovski recently got his title back. That's only because the champion vacated and moved on. If Ilia Topuria had been at 145, we would not see Volk as the champion.
But Volk proved a lot against Lopez. I didn't expect Volk to win. I wanted him to win. I didn't think he'd win. He proved a lot winning it. Absolutely. I agree with you, mate. I also think... So we've spoken about Josh Taylor's matchmaking on the way up. We've spoken about the 234-1 record he's had in his last 8 opponents, I think it is. There is a part of me that thinks with Josh Taylor that all that harsh matchmaking on the way up, start with O'Hara Davis and go all the way through to now.
A lot of miles on, man.
Catching up with him.
Yeah.
He looks sensational. And I remember as a early 20s, just to do you a favour,
God,
JFT.
just to make me feel older. You know?
Watching him and being amazed, because that was at a time in boxing where it wasn't sexy to take hard fights. There wasn't the turkey money around. It was very much you maneuver yourself a certain way to pick up a belt without doing anything spectacular. What Cyclone McGuigan's done with Josh Taylor broke the mold at that time, didn't it? And I now think, and yes, okay, a little bit of hindsight, but it broke Josh Taylor. He's now at a point where he put so many miles on his clock over the 4 or 5 year period. He's got nothing left. Think back to that World Boxing Super Series final against Prograis. His eye was out here.
Yeah.
It was a war. He went to the fucking well that night.
Yeah.
And he done the same against Ramirez. I mean, the scorecards for Vegas, okay, without the knockdowns, it's a draw. But it was a close fight. He done enough down the stretch against Ramirez. Since Ramirez, he's not been the same. Has he underestimated opponents? I don't even think that Josh Taylor has underestimated Jack Catterall ×2, Echo Esserman, and Teo Lopez in the middle. I think the miles on the clock have caught up with him.
He just can't do it anymore at that level.
It's just not there. Yeah. And it's a shame, because there was always a thing with Josh Taylor about his age. He's 34 now. It's not the oldest in the world, as I know you're going to tell me in a minute, but...
No, but in terms of boxing, he's at a pivotal age.
At the lower weight classes as well. In those, not a heavyweight, not a cruiserweight, not a light heavy. He's in the lower weight classes. It makes a difference.
Yeah.
And Josh Taylor was sensational, despite the fact he's a Scot. He was one of my favourite boxers for a period of time.
Yeah.
And it pains me to be saying this about him. That monumental run that made everyone go, fuck me, Josh Taylor's on Channel 5. Yeah, I'm watching that. It isn't there anymore. And there's nothing wrong. I'm not criticising the harsh matchmaking, but that's what it is. If he had soft touches coming up, he'd probably still have it in the tank now, but he had to go to the well. From the 9th fight of his career was O'Hara Davis. Last Saturday was 21. He's gone from fight 9 to fight 21, having to dig deep every time. The only soft touch was the Thai kids that was his blow-away during the first round.
I knew
his first fight with Ben Davidson before the Ramirez fight. He had that soft touch. Everything other than that, he's gone to the well. And I applaud him, but it's caught up with him now, because no disrespect to Echo Esserman, that's a fight 2-3 years ago. He wins inside 6 rounds. That's the reality.
It's a mismatch 4 or 5 years ago. That fight's a mismatch 4 or 5 years ago. I'm interested to see. I know he made a hasty retreat from the ring. He since came out and apologised for that. He said he didn't want to say anything he regretted, which is understandable. I think it was a bit of a prick move, to be honest. There was a lot of people there in his hometown that had paid a lot of money to come and see him. They didn't get the night they were promised, and he didn't front it up.
You said it perfectly, mate. So if Josh Taylor didn't get his arm raised and just walked out the ring, we go, okay. And then he comes out with a statement saying, I didn't want to say anything stupid. Fine, Josh, completely understand. The reality was he goes over the ropes, shrugging his shoulders, looking around, going, if you watch the ringside footage,
like he got, I think it's robbed.
IFL or Rope-a-Dog, and he goes, what the fuck? He doesn't agree with the decision. Then he goes back to his corner, and you've got him on the camera as Echo's being interviewed, going to Joe McNally. What the I don't agree. What the hell? And then he leaves. If he just didn't get his arm raised, shook Echo's hand, and then left, we go, right. And then makes
fair enough.
Right, fair enough. But there was a bit of show. There's a bit of bravado. Typical Josh Taylor. Can't not have a bit of bravado, and it's the spot in him. And
that's what I don't like about him. That I think he's a bit of an arsehole sometimes. It's aren't we all?
It's the dickhead in him, but his dickhead doesn't come out when he wins. When he wins, he can be the most gracious fighter in the world. But what we see from Josh Taylor,
terrible loser.
Yeah, that's it. He's a terrible loser. The Catterall rematch, even Lopez in flipping MSG, where he never won that fight, he's still looking around going, how have I been shafted? He's a fantastic winner. And look, being a winner is easy. Look at the Liverpool team last weekend when they won the league. They were all buzzing. I had to get that in.
And next year.
They're all buzzing off of life because they've won the league. But Mikel Arteta and Arsenal are flipping little snakes and moaning about things. It's how you lose. It's not how you win. It's how you lose. Pep Guardiola all year, because City have fallen so far off their perch, has been a little bitchy, moany, whiny.
Everybody else's fault and everything's against them. And
look at Tyson Fury is another example of a boxer that's lost and hasn't dealt with it well. Look at, and it's gone out my head. It's a British fighter. It's gone out my head. There is.
What? Wait.
Let's go. Dave Allen's the example I'm going to use. Dave lost that first fight in Saudi, and after
David Hay is a bad loser.
Yeah, David Hay's a bad. But to go on the good side, Dave Allen done an interview sitting next to Johnny Fisher the day after the fight in Saudi, and went, "Don't rematch me. I'm not being a cocky so and so, but I'm telling you, if you rematch me, it's not going to go well for you." Dave Allen then went back into that gym with Jamie Moore and Nigel Travis, and we didn't see him till fight week. Even his Instagram, which is flipping entertaining, we had nothing from him. He then appeared in fight week, said very little. Look what he done in the rematch, and now he's maximising the moment. That's how you lose a fight that you shouldn't have lost, and then do it right. Dave Allen isn't the example I was going for, but it's a recent one. Dave Allen has shown how you lose graciously, come back, right the wrong, do it properly.
Yeah. Did you see what Josh Taylor did to Sonny Edwards in the changing room?
Yeah.
I thought that was a joke, but
no, that's serious.
What's the problem with them two?
It actually comes back to Grant Smith.
Is that what it is?
Josh wanted to move to Grant Smith before he ended up with Ben Davidson, and Grant said, "I don't have room for a fight." He was very polite and said, "A fighter of your caliber." So he played to Josh's ego.
Yeah.
A fighter of your size, I don't have time for you, which is fair enough. What would Josh have rather? He moved to Grant Smith, Steel City Gym, and it didn't work out? That's where I struggle to understand it. And then, obviously, Sonny was the golden goose in that gym.
Yeah.
We all know Dalton's going to be there. He's Grant's son, and that's a relationship you're never going to get in between. That's different. Sonny was that golden goose who won his world title fight a week after Josh Taylor beat that Thai kid in a round. He had that world title fight and he won. So it's sour for me. That's sour.
It's a prick move.
Yeah, it's sour grapes.
The cameras were there. He knew.
We knew, mate. Come on.
But it was hard. But Sonny reckons he got 2 apologies, and he's going to get a public apology. Whether that's true or not, I don't.
Well, if you look, it's a bit similar to. Remember Josh Taylor waiting for flipping Wenger boys and someone else to play before he left the changing room.
Yeah.
And Sam's sitting there going, "Oh, I love it. He's building up the crowds." And me and you went, no. Josh Taylor doesn't build up a crowd. He gets on the ramp. He builds up the crowd. He doesn't do that. We said from the start, didn't we? Not right. Josh Taylor.
He looked old. Sorry to
no, go, mate.
I think we said it on the live. Sam
you said he looked old, yeah.
Something didn't look right, and I said he looked old, but he was tanned, and I would try to convince myself that I'd not seen what I'd seen.
Old spray tan, mate. He'd had old spray tan.
It didn't do him any favours, and I'm taking some, calling him old. He's probably 15 years younger than me, but that wasn't Josh Taylor. That was the shell. That was a shell of Josh Taylor. He knows that.
Yeah.
His coaching team know that. And for me, I'm on the same page as you. I think he should retire for the simple fact that his ego and his legacy don't deserve to be opponents and cannon fodder for up and cut. Because he's in there's some killers at welterweight. Could you imagine if he'd have gone in if he'd have beat Esserman and then he goes in with Ennis?
That's what would have happened, mate. He would have gone in with Ennis on a Saudi card. Now Frank and Eddie are bum chums. That would have been the fight. But I'm going to say something controversial, and I'm going to park the finances outside of the ring to one side. He never should have left McGuigan's.
I think I said that on our watch-along. I think I said he's never been the same since he left the McGuigan's. The best of Josh Taylor we saw. Whatever you think of the McGuigan's or Barry.
Barry and Blaine, or whatever the older brother's called.
Yeah, whatever you think of them in terms of the management style and what they've alleged. Well, it's not allegedly. They robbed Carl Frampton, basically. They wangled expenses. We've all done it, but not to the degree that they.
Not to that extent. It's paying for a straight hand in New York on fight week.
Fucking nonsense, mate. Nonsense. But Carl Frampton stood on his truth, and he got the truth came out, and he got his compensation. But what I was getting at is whatever you think of them, Shane McGuigan is a fucking masterful tactician. He is a brainiac. He studies. He knows nutrition. He knows sports science, but he knows boxing. That kid's been brought up. His dad. You know, some of these younger people don't realise that
How good Barry was.
The UK used to stop when Barry McGuigan. I remember Barry losing to, was it Steve Cruz? I might have got the name wrong, but that was a fucking massive fight, and I remember the whole country coming to a standstill. You know, and he's Northern Irish, but the UK in general just got behind this kid that could fight. So he knows boxing. He's boxed himself at an amateur level. You know, and we have not seen. And this is no slight on it's McNally that he's with now, isn't it? Joe McNally and them. You know, this is no slight on them because I know they've got a good fucking gym, amateur and professional, but he hasn't had a win under them, has he?
It's on Josh more than it's on McNally's. And I'm just going back to Shane quickly. So probably something you don't do. Shane McGuigan's got his own YouTube channel and he puts out training camp videos, fight night videos, and he puts out all sorts on that. And I don't tend to watch a lot of boxing stuff because you get the bullshit and the politics. But Shane McGuigan's YouTube channel that he started up earlier this year is fantastic viewing because you actually see him in the gym when a fighter's not doing what he wants and he tells the fighter. That would normally be something that gets turned up. No, that's on camera and that's gone out in the final cut. Josh Pritchard is his second. He also looks after Lee Cutler as his main trainer. That's a very tight-knit team. And it is just a shame that old Barry can't keep his fingers out of the cash pot and has to do what he does because Shane McGuigan is a fantastic trainer.
Really good.
Daniel Dubois was there. And yes, Don Charles is now getting all the flowers with Daniel Dubois. But who laid the groundwork with him?
The foundations were done by McGuigan.
When he left Martin Bowler, when he left that team after the Joe Joyce loss during COVID, McGuigan and Pritchard built him back up. They got him the Trevor Bryant fight in that flipping leisure centre that we're going to see soon for Pulev and Hunter because Don King is back, baby.
Oh, God. Who's he robbed to get the £1 million fucking for his purse bid?
Hey, that robbery hasn't happened yet.
That'll be on Klarna.
He's doing that tomorrow. He's waiting. Anyway, but the reality is, and I do agree, Don Charles deserves a lot of credit for what he's done with Dubois in the last 3 fights and Kieran Farrell. But those foundations were laid to rebuild Dubois. Those foundations were laid in that McGuigan gym in Brixton. You look at Ellie Scottney, what he done with, Robbie Davis Jr. is now retired and lost. But what he done with Robbie Davis Jr.
Had some good nights, man. Some good wins.
Shane McGuigan is a fantastic trainer, but he always gets hard with the brush related to his dad, which is a shame. But Josh never should have left him. You said it last week. I was thinking it. I kind of held back on saying it in case of any backlash. But the reality is, as soon as he left McGuigan's, Ben Davidson got into Undisputed. They got the win against Jack Catterall. Josh didn't accept that very well. Dropped Ben like a hot stone. Moved to Rotunda. Lost to Lopez. Lost to Catterall. Lost to Esserman. The first 2 aren't bad losses.
The third one is.
Esserman is. But mate, we've done 20 odd minutes on it. You can't really say much more on it. You're at where you're at now. You just hope Echo isn't a victim of being not a big draw and gets what he deserves, kind of thing.
He does. We'll probably get an announcement in the coming weeks. Right. This has done my head in for a while. I mean, look, there's a big show on. I think it's this coming week. And Iman Khalif is being allowed to box women again. Where do you stand on that? I'm totally against it. I think, look, she's not a man, right? I'm not gonna be as disrespectful as to say she is a man in terms of anatomy. She doesn't have a penis. I don't believe she has testicles. She has everything but. That lady, in air quotes, and I'm going to get hammered for this, and I've been hammered already this week, but I'm standing on it. She has she has more male chromosomes, anatomy than female. She looks like a man. She's built like a man. Where do you stand on her being allowed to box? I believe that she has to have more gender tests in the build-up, and I think it's going to be chromosome tests and genes.
Yeah, it's chromosome tests. Yeah.
Where do you stand on it?
I have very little to say on it other than until she's done these tests, she shouldn't be fighting.
No. Did you see the way she walked through the women at the Olympics?
Yeah, mate, because of there's so much grey area around it, I don't want to say too much, but all I will say is until she's had these tests done that have been ordered, she should be suspended from fighting. That's where I'm at with it. Because
I agree.
If they come back clear in her favour, then fair play. Everyone eats humble pie and we let her carry on. But because there's this grey matter, this grey area, you can't let it happen. And that's where I'll die on that hill until someone can show me tests where she passes them. She shouldn't be fighting.
No. Good evening, Hand History Vault. Thanks for joining us. I'll jump on that question in a second. Mad Mitch TV. How are you, brother? I need to let you know my he's building me a watch. Meat and No Veg Massacre. He's building me a watch, so I will be in touch regarding colours, brother.
Is that the name on the watch? Is that going to be engraved in it? Meat and No Veg.
It is. Meat and No Veg. Right, Hand History Vault. Initial thoughts on Pulev Hunter. Yeah, I'll probably watch it. I think Michael Hunter will beat him on points. I'm not really interested. I think it's a nonsense fight.
It's probably a better matchup for Pulev than Fabio Wardley or Moses Talma. But I'm absolutely sure that Michael Hunter does similar. Michael Hunter walks through Kubrat Pulev.
He's too robotic and he's not got better with age, and he's knocking on. I think Hunter isn't very active himself. I can't remember his last fight. When was his last fight?
Last year. But you know what happens? Hunter wins it. You know what fight they make?
It'll be Fabio Wardley, will it not?
Bacoli.
That's it. Oh, fucking hell. I forgot about that.
Yeah. You know that
narrative. Yeah.
The narrative. About that. And for a regular world title, if you want to have a narrative to it, you either get Don King to rob a bank and do.
I was thinking Joshua.
Shit. No, I actually personally would rather see the Bacoli rematch, and if Hunter beats Bacoli,
I would. Yeah. Sorry, go on.
I think that's where it goes. Look, you either need Don King to rig a purse bid and do some illegal crap to do what he's done to win this one, or you need the narrative of Bacoli, because a regular world title carries no weight. The reason that people paid attention when Dubois fought Trevor Bryant was because it was Daniel Dubois.
Yeah.
No one, okay, Don King, fine. There was squinted eyes towards Don King, whatever. But the main allure to that fight was it was Daniel Dubois. Now we're going to see how much he's improved since the Joyce loss. Trevor Bryant isn't a world beater, but it's a step. And now look at where Dubois is. It's very similar. Michael Hunter should bulldoze Kubrat Pulev. That's me being honest. And then they make the Bacoli rematch. And Bacoli and Billy Nelson either shut a lot of people up or it's the end of Bacoli. That's where that stands. Because if he loses to Michael Hunter...
Oh, it's done. The boogeyman narrative's done.
Mate, that's the rope left. That's the rope left for Bacoli. It's gone if Hunter beats him twice. That's where we're at.
The undisputed champion of sparring has not got any more slip-ups. He has to... he got knocked out. Okay, was ill-prepared. Blah, 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 blah. Has a draw and he labours to a draw in his last fight against a guy that we'd all picked him to walk through, not 6 months prior to that, 4 or 5 months prior to that.
Tells you everything you need to know about activity, getting high off your own supply, recency bias. That Bacoli performance against the Jagba doesn't happen for me without the Parker fight. If you go from Jared Anderson into a Jagba, you get a switched on, revved up, focused Bacoli. That Parker fight, and as you've said before, the money he earned from the Parker fight has completely changed Martin Bacoli's outlook.
Yeah. We haven't talked about Frank Warren drama with Bacoli and Atama.
My take on it, is it drama? So Frank Warren got asked in an interview, people, last week in Scott in Scotland, people he'd like to see Moses Talma fight. And he said Martin Bacoli. Fair enough. I'd say Martin Bacoli. Bacoli's then in Scotland with Billy Nelson. I mean, good that he's in Scotland. It shows Billy's maybe got some control back over Bacoli, that he was there and they were at the fight. And then Billy Nelson does an interview with Queensbury, probably a nightmare interview for Queensbury, because he says that it's not going to be Moses in July at Wembley because we've got the fight lined up for September. I believe it will be the winner of Pulev and Hunter. So is it really drama? I think Frank has said something. Frank has said he'd like Bacoli to fight Talma. I mean, he'd like Okoli, Dillian White, Otto Wallin, Jermaine Franklin. He'd like 27 different heavyweights to fight.
Yeah.
Moses Talma. I think it is more that Billy Nelson has a plan for Bacoli, and it's the win. It's hoping that Hunter beats Pulev, and that's the fight. That's my take. I don't know if you're any different, mate.
No, I agree. The problem for me with Moses Talma is I think they need to fucking put the brakes on a little bit. And yeah, he needs to step up, but they are just throwing name after name after name like he's just going to walk through everybody. This kid's untested yet. He's managing to... I know you're only as good as your last fight and you can only beat what's put in front of you. I get that. But if they're not careful, they'll do what they did with Daniel Dubois. Remember, Frank's done this before. Daniel Dubois... I will say that Frank did say before his first loss that this is going to be the kid that will be the man and he'll beat Joshua. And he did. But he took a heavy defeat, a bad fucking defeat. And look, if it hadn't been a strong will, that could have broke him. I'm not saying Talma's weak-minded and a defeat would crush him. But I just think, what's the rush? The kid's what? Is he 19 or 20 or something
20
like
now.
that?
20 now.
Wow. Just let the kid grow, man. Don't be throwing him in there with these killers straight away. You know, they're talking about him fighting Usyk in 2 or 3 fights. Usyk won't be around by the time
Usyk won't be around
up there.
I'll say this, mate. He's with Ben Davidson, and I put Ben Davidson in a similar bracket to when I talk about Andy Lee in terms of how good he is with fighters. Ben Davidson is the best place for Moses Talma to be. Let's park the AJ stuff for a minute with Ben. Let's focus on what Ben's done with other fighters, including how he brought Fury back into that first Wilder fight. Ben Davidson is fantastic. You guys.
Why would we not? I don't give a fuck what your sexuality is. Yes.
I've lost it.
Fucking hell.
What Ben Davidson does with fights is why he's perfect for Moses.
Mad Mitch is in the stream.
because Ben will say, if Ben doesn't agree with a fight for Moses, he'll say, and he's one of very few trainers that's got a set of bollocks on him to say, no, this isn't right.
Yeah.
Think about the way he threw in the towel for Lee Wood in the first Lara fight. And
he's level-headed, isn't he?
He done that because he knew, and it's a bullshit reason, he knew Lee had the rematch. And what did Lee do in the rematch? He won his belt back. That's the sort of trainer you want in Moses' Talma's corner. And yeah, like you said, mate, you don't need to be getting Moses a world title shot in the next 3 years.
We're not talking about sex or sexuality or we're talking about fights. But welcome to the show.
Let us know your opinion on Moses Talma.
Well, do I have to say welcome to Straight Talk?
Don't do that, mate. They're not going to stay if you do that. But no, look, Moses Talma is exciting. And I think Nick Pete said it on the Fight Disciples this week. Carry on the UK Roadshow. Buy a ticket to see Moses now, because before too long, it's going to be 200 quid to sit in the flipping gods at Wembley to see him. And that's the reality. I've been fortunate to see Moses twice. I saw him on his 3 times, sorry. I saw him on his debut. I saw him against Deverenchenko, and I saw him when he beat Wack last summer. And if I'd never seen Moses again, I'll be very happy to say when he's at the top, I've seen him 3 times. Phenomenal. Yeah. One of the best talents coming through that I've seen live. Absolutely, without doubt. AJ is going to get a deal with Turkey, hand history. Well, reality, Turkey knows there's money in the AJ cash cow yet, regardless of what's left in him. There's 2 or 3 fights minimum, so he's going to get that deal. It's happening.
Yeah.
I know what you're going to say, mate, but he's going to get the deal.
No, I mean, similar to you with the Talma, I remember AJ doing the rounds, so I saw him box 3 or 4 times in Manchester I think it was on Crawler undercards or Scott Quigg undercards.
He done Newcastle, he done Scotland, he done everywhere, mate. He was all over the place. Cardiff, he went everywhere.
I saw a few prospects coming through on Matchroom shows. I think I saw Lawrence Okoli a couple of times.
You fall asleep?
Can I be 100% honest? I did actually go for a bottle of water halfway through. I'm not joking. It was shit. I think it was a Commonwealth. Could have been a Commonwealth title fight.
Yeah.
It was shit. It was awful. It was painful to watch. Probably one of the most boring fights I've ever watched. But anyway, look, that is what it is. He will get a 2-fight deal with Turkey. He's still a golden goose. AJ, regardless of what I think of him on a personal level, because I'm not a fan. I've had a couple of interactions with him, yada yada yada. But look, the guy sells tickets. He puts, I get you, Liam. He's like that. He's off the key. AJ is a draw. AJ is an absolute draw. So they will rinse AJ until AJ loses to somebody like Atama, and then he'll retire.
Or has CCE, sadly. And I hate to say that. I'm not saying AJ's a candidate for it at the moment. He's not in the Joe Joyce realm. I agree with you. I'd rather see a Talma fight a Coley or a Jagba. But I tell you what, July 19th at Wembley, a Talma's on that card. If he's in there opposite Jermaine Franklin, I'm invested because...
That's the best fight. It's a tough guy.
Wasn't stopped by Dillian White. Should have beat Dillian White. Wasn't stopped by Anthony Joshua. Joshua beat him 9 rounds to 3 for me. That's the reality, but he wasn't stopped. If Moses can go out there and beat him, I'm then not going to come on here and say, oh my God, he needs to fight the winner of the main event. I won't do that, but you're then legitimately saying Lawrence Okoli is another step up from me, from Franklin, because he's a 2-weight world champion.
I'm not sure at heavyweight yet. I want to see him in Okoli.
I'm not sure at heavyweight, but the name of Lawrence Okoli carries more weight than Jermaine Franklin.
Yes,
you can say, if Atalma gets rid of Franklin in the first half of the fight, you can make Moses Atalma, Lawrence Okoli at the O2 in November. I'll get a ticket. I will 100. If Atalma gets Okoli before the end of this year, I'm going. Sorry, boys, I love doing the watch-alongs.
No,
but there's something about seeing Atalma fight Okoli, not because of Okoli. Because I have fallen asleep watching Okoli fights at home before, maybe half cut, but I've fallen asleep watching him.
We all.
But Atalma is exciting, and I want to make the most of seeing Atalma now before I can't get close to the ring because he's fighting in stadiums or fighting in Saudi. I haven't. I'm newer to my boxing journey than you are, as we've had conversations before. But Atalma is one of a few fighters that's captured me like this. I want to go to it. I won't go to Wembley for the Usyk Dubois card because I've seen Usyk fight before and he's on my bucket list. I've ticked him off. Canelo might come over, so I'd rather do a stadium for Canelo, as we had a conversation about off camera. But any chance to see a Talma in an arena, I'm going to get all over before it gets too much.
What about this one? What about AJ versus Atalma as his final fight? You think it's possible? I see it as handing over the torch. I don't think AJ's ego would allow him to hand over the torch.
AJ's got to leave Ben. AJ is still trained by Ben Davidson. Sorry, mate. AJ's got to leave Ben. And
regardless of that,
AJ said he's not leaving Ben. I think regardless of that, this is everyone.
Yeah, so we're gonna cut this one. No, it's all right. We'll finish it shortly. I don't think AJ's ego would allow him to take a risk. He's just done that against Dubois and got flattened. As you can see, Liam has got a family barbecue in about 30 seconds. I don't think that fight's going to happen.
Beers, mate. Let's go.
Any other business, Liam, before we wrap up this week's show?
Charlo loses tonight.
You think so?
I predicted that with Stan. Go over to West W Fight Hub. We've done a prediction for Caleb Plant's fight and Charlo's fight. Lamana beats Charlo, and my argument is, in the time Charlo's fought twice, Lamana's fought 9 times. Look at the activity of Echo Esserman against Josh Taylor. I'm going a similar narrative. Charlo loses tonight, and Al Heyman's going to cry himself to sleep because it should have been Plant and Charlo tonight. That's the reality.
Yeah, but I think Al Heyman will be dabbing his tears with $100 bills. I think he'll sleep pretty soundly tonight. With a couple
of Russian people around him, probably.
Allegedly.
Allegedly. Thank you for the alleged.
And on that note, we will end
Great way to leave.
Impromptu show. Thank you for everybody that's joined us. Elaine Roblox 13, you're welcome back anytime. Gay straight
Mitch,
up by.
and history vote. Thank you.
Andrew Strivort, Mad Mitch TV. Anybody else that's tuned in?
Mitch, I need to
very
speak
much.
to you about some trainers, mate, to get Jay to pass in my details.
I will pass the details on. I'll make that link. Mad Mitch TV. Get yourself over to the Mad Mitch Steel City Treads on social media, Instagram for rare sneaks and watches. Liam, thank you so much for joining me, brother. Enjoy the football, enjoy the food, enjoy the beers. We'll catch you all on the other side. Thank you.
I apologise for this noise.